Hi,
George, hey,
Jake. How you doing, mate?
hey, it's good, all good, all good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you for speaking to us about your new film, Dark Obsession.
Well, thanks for having me.
Terrific, terrific. So tell us, what brought you on board to direct a Dark Obsession for yourself?
Well, it was it was a COVID movie where I was living with my partner down in Florida. We were down there during the lockdown, and I think just the location, the forest that crept onto the back of the house, and the kind of isolation that we were feeling. We didn't even have a car, so we couldn't do anything. It was just us two for months. Led us to kind of creating this story and slowly building it up and up and up and finding people around us in the local area who would be willing to help make it. Friends that we hadn't spoken to necessarily in years, and it all kind of came together like that. Um, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was very kind of informal. I think we were the first film to shoot in the whole kind of that kind of whole area that was a SAG project, and everyone had to live in the house. We weren't allowed to leave because of COVID concerns. It became a bit of a slumber party, and that's kind of how the project came to be.
It's
So
it's funny is because I knew it was Florida because I recognized that style of pool houses that they actually have.
the mosquito net thing, right? Exactly. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, we were in the middle of nowhere, Florida, so it was. Yeah, honestly, the location kind of brought us together, and the writing the script, the film together was a really cathartic experience during that point in time. So it
Most
was a lot
excellent.
of fun.
So tell us um how you I know Blaine wrote the script. Tell us how that was actually developed and how you met her um you know before the production of this film.
But as I say, at the time we were partners, and so I was visiting her. I was actually meeting her parents for the first time at their house in Florida. I remember thinking it was sort of early March 2020, and I saw some articles on the news about this virus. I was like, I'm going to bring a few extra pairs of socks. And then, sure enough, we were stuck in this house for sort of 2 weeks, became 3, 4 weeks, and then months. Um, and we're both filmmakers and living. She came up with the idea. I don't want to give away the plot of the story, but she said, George, I have an idea for a movie. What if we do this? And I'm like, well, that's terrifying. How did you come up with that? That's a little concerning because it involves the husband and the what. Anyway, um, and then from there we would just sit on the balcony in the evenings and write this script together. She got it over the finish line 100% because when it came around to direct, get close to production, and I had to take on the directing role, she took over the writing in a much bigger way. Um, so yeah, that was how it came to be. And I think at the time we were like, are we really going to actually make this? We started reaching out to people, and people were interested because they were sitting around at home and they didn't have anything to do. And I think the script was really good. I think she did a great job with the story. And yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. I remember the actors on set when they arrived, they couldn't really believe that it was actually happening. Um, but I'm glad we did it, and it was a lot of fun. So, and lifelong friends were made.
Well, yeah, I was going to say not to mention that 95 I want to say more than 95% of the movie is all Blaine.
Absolutely, she is the movie. Blaine carries this movie 100%. Was she was an unstoppable force. I mean, I the way that the movie was shot in the time it was shot in, the speed, she had to be just. I don't know. I could I don't know anyone else who could have done that. She is tenacious and tough, and because she was also the writer, had this kind of, you know what I mean. She knew what the story was about, and so there was so much trust there, and I didn't have to be doing too much of the direct. She came with it, and we'd all had all these conversations already. Um, so yeah, the movie is 95% Blaine. It's a psychological thriller. It's all about her, and I don't think anyone else could have played Anne it to even a vaguely comparable level. She crushed it.
So how as a director like yourself try to, give directions to someone like Blaine who wrote it and is in 95% of the movie, or you just basically let her do her thing?
I think well, there was a lot of it was a visual thing. So like working with a cinematographer, production design, all these other elements that obviously the actors are one part of directing, but there's every other part of it as well. And the edits, I think editing that was a lot of elements. But I think sometimes as the actor, because I've done this, I've written and acted, and then not necessarily, when you're on camera, there's an objectivity that comes from being on the other side of the camera that you can't necessarily see as the actor. So I'm like, maybe a suggestion, we could do it differently, slightly differently, Blaine, or do an old version, or even on the day, but one or both of us would be like, we feel like we should try something new, and we would be really supportive of each other in trying that alternative version of things. I think it's important to have someone looking out for you, to make sure that everything's going well, and also dealing with the chemistry that comes with working with other actors. Even if you know the story really well, that's a whole other challenge. And I think it's important for the director to be cognizant of that. And so that's what I try to do.
I was going to bring up the cinematography, because I found the cinematography, very, very unique for this film. Could you talk more about the cinematography style that you wanted to have for this film? Especially, there were a lot of close-up shots.
Yeah, and I think we actually, when we first shot the movie, in principle, we didn't have enough close-up shots. So when we did additional photography and reshoots, we added more of those, because the feedback we got was like, this is a psychological thriller. We should be close to Anne at all times. We want to be in her head. And just more broadly speaking, I think playing with shadows a lot, like the idea of this duality of reality versus not reality, in the shadows and not in the shadows. Those were kind of the ideas that we took into the cinematography as a whole. But certainly, I love being up close and just getting in her mind, because her mind is the movie essentially. Like, she's 95% of the movie, and the story is all what's going on in her head.
So you're a big fan of psychological thrillers. Then what's the process of directing a perfect psychological thriller? Is it basically trying to throw the audiences off, or getting into the minds of the characters?
I think it's two things. I think it's planning everything out in the script ahead of time, so that you don't get caught out in a oh, we've gone down a road that we can't get back on now. This isn't going to make any sense. So planning that out, and then definitely, surprising the audience by just going a little bit, allowing the actors to just. One thing we do is like a little bit of improvisational scenes. There's a moment where she's sort of going through a trance-like state, and I remember thinking we need to just let this happen and see where this takes us, because I think this is going to throw the audience off. Because it's so raw and visceral. I think, keeping it raw and visceral is key. I mean, that's what I would say about that. I think, I hope that was an okay answer.
No, it's good. I know it's always funny to do these interviews, and you don't want to give too many spoilers away, especially in a film like Dark Obsession here, which is kind of funny. Now,
it's very hard to talk about without giving away the story. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, but one of the things I can actually say is the house is a very important integral part of the story. Tell us about utilizing the house, because as I'm watching it, it was I'm thinking in my head going, it has something to do with this house.
I think the house 100%, but also that all the trauma that took place in this house, right? It's kind of like if walls could talk. You have these horror movies where things took place in this house, and those traumas and those feelings and emotions never really left. And I think that's what we tried to do with the house, like all the things that had happened to her in the past, and then also the forest, the way the forest and the house is almost like a little prison within the forest, but also kind of like kind of a place of safety. And we had this idea that the forest would try and be taking over the house. So our production designer had us add more and more plants from the forest as the movie goes on. So I guess someone might call it out as a continuity error, but we actually intentionally, if you watch the movie from the beginning, it's a subtle thing, but at the beginning there's some plants, in the middle there's more, and then by the end there's more and more plants throughout the house. And I thought that was a really, really cool way of making the location a real character that's evolving as the movie progresses. It was a great idea from our production.
Isn't it also adding the atmosphere of isolation, because it is that she's trying to confront this by herself?
Absolutely. And I think again, not to give the story away, that is really the obstacle she needs to overcome, is confronting these traumas. And and being in this big empty house too, I think creates that sense of isolation even more so. And yeah, that is her task, is to confront these traumas. And obviously her character, as we all do, sometimes you run away from these things and you kind of become more and more isolated. And yeah, that was 100% part of the mindset too. So yeah, thank you for calling that out, because I agree.
Now, of course, you have two big stars that also make cameo appearances in the film with Mena Suvari and Daniel Harris. Talk about approaching them to be a part of this project, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah, so when we first shot it, these actors were people that we knew, and we kind of built the characters around them. And then when we were in post, our casting director was like, "I feel that this movie is really fun. Well, I don't know if fun is the right word. It's good, I guess, hopefully. And you have a strong script. I'd love to send it out. I know you're doing reshoots or pickups with a neighbor character. How about we try and cast someone for that?" And we sent it to Danielle, and she got back to us within 24 hours. She's like, "I love the script. I'd love to do this." And that was amazing. And then having Danielle attached really helped, I think. And then Mena jumped on as well. And again, I guess something spoke to them regarding the script. So this was later during COVID, so things were sort of opening up. But obviously we had to go for all the precautions of the testing, all that kind of thing. But they were just fantastic to work with. I loved them both. They were lovely. And they really elevated the project. And especially Mena's role, I feel like, again, it's impossible to talk about her role without giving away the crux of the movie. But I thought she was fantastic.
Most excellent. So, George, what is up next with you after this film?
I have a sci-fi. So this movie's coming out tomorrow, actually, in the US, and then I have a sci-fi thriller coming out in January called Project Dorothy, about an AI that was built in the 80s that went rogue and killed everybody. And then I have a horror movie that was shot this year. I feel like scarecrows get no love in horror, and I've always wanted to make a scarecrow horror movie. So that's the project I'm in post-production on currently.
Wow, you do everything. It seems like across all different types of genres.
Yeah, I think it's fun to just dip. Yeah, I think jack of all trades, master of none, maybe. No, hopefully not. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and just, certainly in the horror thriller space, I think that's where I find myself most at home.
Most excellent. Well, George, hey, thank you for this conversation about your film, Dark Obsession. Everyone should check it out. We didn't reveal any spoilers in this interview, but people will have to watch for all those twists and turns and see what happens to the end. So
thank you. Thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Cheers.